IVM.
Ow! I injured my arm. I was in the gym lifting weights, doing, my normal pull-ups and traps with about 400 pounds in each arm. And actually, I was doing the bench press. I can't lie. I was on my 8th lift. It was about 360 pounds without a spot. I don't like to go lower and, embarrass myself. And suddenly my daughter enters all excited. And she says, "Dad, have you heard?" And I said, "Heard what?" And she said, "Now you can get Kotak home loans at only 6.5% interest." I was so shocked, my hand slipped, the bench press bar fell on my other hand, and before I knew it, I'm on my way to hospital in a lot of pain. But before the hospital, driver, Kotak Mahindra Bank pe rokna. I need to do this now. I blame my daughter for this. ऐसी बातें बताने से पहले कृपया ध्यान रखे. I mean, come on, yaar. Terms and conditions apply. Interest rate starting at 6.5% per annum.
This is Storytellers and Story Sellers live on tape. You're listening to Vineet Kanabar on the IVM Podcast Network. As you may have heard, we're doing Gaming Month all of October. And all this month, we're bringing you gaming creators from game streamers. We're talking to people who run Indian gaming companies. We're basically indulging ourselves in our gaming addiction. Yeah, I do have a full-blown FIFA addiction. I'm not seeing therapy. That said, we are very excited to be joined by Gaurav Agarwal from GamesOp Technologies. Now, what I want to talk to Gaurav today ranges from not just being about what's going on in the gaming industry, but a larger sort of cross-sectional view of where does Indian gaming go from here, right? It's a massive, massive industry right now. It's a money spinner. You might not believe it because you don't see it advertised as much, but there are more gamers in India than there are video streamers. There is more revenue from gaming in India than there is from Netflix, Amazon Prime, Z, and all of these guys combined. While advertisers would like to believe that India is a video-first country, India in 2021 is most definitely a gaming-first country. Gaurav, welcome to the show. So glad to have you on. I love how calm and composed you are. And I mean, generally when I have folks on here, it's a lot more like, a little bit here and there, but I love how calm and composed you are. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Vineet. Thanks for having me.
So what we usually do is after I do this sort of long-winded intro, we go into a quick break, which I will do now. On the other side of this break, we'll talk about all the good things that I promised we will talk about. Go nowhere. This is Storytellers and Story Sellers. We've got Gaurav Agarwal to talk about gaming in India right after these messages.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into a show about crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM Podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
Back on Storytellers and Story Sellers, that was advertising that keeps this podcast afloat. Gaurav, so glad to have you on. Like I mentioned before, I've got like a host of questions to ask you. But let me get started by asking you something broad and philosophical, right? Where do you see Indian gaming and GamesOp specifically as well in its growth cycle right now in 2021? What are your notes on that?
I think any question around gaming, no matter in which part of the world you ask, is going to be incomplete without the effect that the pandemic has had, right? So naturally, I'll probably start there. I think what we have seen happening over the last few quarters of 2020 and the whole of 2021 is we've seen a large portion of non-gamers turning to casual gamers.
Right.
Now, that means something entirely different from your mid-core gamers, as in guys who are playing PUBG and Fortnite, etc. Them spending more time on those respective games. That's definitely happened. But I think the industry has seen the most number of non-gamers turn to casual gamers in this part of the year, in the last few quarters, than it's ever seen before. Mm-hmm. And that's what's made gaming so interesting, not just for the startup ecosystem, but also for investors, because we've moved the envelope on that side of the things.
And how has that impacted what you had planned for GamesUp, right? Because if I've done my research correctly, your brother and you started the company in 2015?
Yeah, 2016.
2016, my bad.
Yeah.
Your focus is on bringing HTML licensed games to various platforms, which is a fantastic space, right? I mean, it is, I think, a space that a lot of companies have sort of missed, in personal opinion, right? I mean,
Sure.
When you look at the growth of a platform like Facebook, and I'm talking Facebook early to 2010s, right? You had like a bunch of games on Facebook. You don't see them anymore there. Nobody plays games on Facebook anymore. But these other platforms are also in that life cycle, right? So talk me through end 2019, early 2020, you have some plans, then the pandemic hits and everything's through the roof.
Correct.
How's that impacted what you guys had in mind?
Sure. So I think the pandemic allowed us to execute our plans better because suddenly everybody wanted to have games. For example, Amazon has our games. On MX Player, you'll find our games. On Airtel Thanks, which is Airtel's flagship application, you'll find our games. And on 3,000 other products, The only commonality between all of these products that have our games is all of them are non-gaming platforms. It's not like we're taking our games to another gaming application, but we go to a non-gaming product and we tell them that, look, content consumption is complementary. You ought to have a gaming section inside your product. It could be a news application. News applications have had videos. They've had weather. They've had jokes. They haven't had games because traditionally games would require an app install.
Right.
With HTML5, like you've mentioned it, our games can actually work inside somebody else's product. Which means that if a user was earlier spending, let's say, 10 minutes on a product, if he or she has affinity towards gaming, suddenly on the same product, the user will start spending 15 minutes.
Right.
And since it's HTML5, it doesn't increase the size of the application. It doesn't cost them anything. We take the platform. It's a plug and play solution that we take to platforms, and we, very easily are able to integrate it. Coming back to your question about how it's impacted things, I think when we started the company in 2016, our vision was very clear. We felt that in no form of content other than games would you have the need to download a file first. Think about the pre-YouTube era in 2005-06. We would download files and then we would play them on a VLC or a real media player, right? Today, that's where games are.
Right.
In order to play a game, you have to make this app installation process, which is cumbersome. We felt that if you take away the friction from gaming, maybe it'll reach its full potential. So we thought, okay, we have figured that part out, that games need to be delivered on the web, on HTML5, but how do you get distribution? So that's when we thought, let's meet the gamer where he's already there.
Right.
Meet him inside an Amazon, meet him inside an MX Player, meet him inside a Sony Live. That's where the users are already there. Make his life easier. Piggyback on the distribution of these products and make gaming frictionless. And 2019, 2020, throughout the pandemic, we saw a lot of products turning to us to have a gaming section within their respective properties. That helped us a bit.
Wonderful. So help me understand this, right, very quickly. When they turn to you with this kind of a request, right, it's very clear that gaming is the LTV extender, time spent extender in that sense, right? How do they tell you what to build though? Right? What is the process there, right? I know that miniclip.com, for example, provided the template for all of these sort of Flash HTML games, right, at that time. But the world has moved on.
Sure.
I mean, sure, we do have the next update of Warzone, which is a full TB. But even for smaller games, right, there are easier, better, so many options, right? And it's so hard to do kind of research and understand what will really work, right? So how do you go about servicing this demand? What's the secret sauce for you to understand what's going to work? Just help us understand that.
Sure. So I think you're right. Platforms asking us to make games would not be scalable because they would have some things in mind. Plus, there would be so many people that we have to deal with in those companies, right? So we don't sort of go that route at all. What we do is, independent of who's going to come to us, we keep cataloging games that come to us from developers worldwide.
Right.
We don't, when we look to buy a game from a developer sitting in Ukraine or in Poland, we don't keep in mind that, okay, fine, this is going to go inside Amazon, or this is going to, look nice inside AccuWeather, or this is going to look nice inside MSN. That would be, like putting a cap to how much we can earn out of that game.
Sure.
So our job is to bring high quality games from developers worldwide, ensure that we make them conducive for gameplay in the Indian market conditions, which means if a game developer sent a game which is, let's say, 25 MB in size, we know that we have to deliver this experience inside somebody else's product. So what our team does is we cut the size of that game down without any loss in the quality of audio or visuals by about 80%. That's our proprietary tech.
Right.
A game could come to us in 25 MB, but after we are done working on it, the size of that game would be reduced significantly, by about 80%.
Do you run Pied Piper?
Sorry?
Have you seen Silicon Valley? This is Silicon Valley.
No. I haven't been, but yeah, I relate.
Middle out compression. I think that's the phrase they invented there, right?
Sure. Yeah, but yeah, one could say that we do our version of the same. We try and compress that game while keeping the originals of the game intact, and we take it to the products, right, who would be potentially interested in it.
Right.
Once our catalog goes to these publishers, it's not like they have to spend too much time in choosing the games. We ask them for their demographics. We tell them, can you tell us who is the ideal user on your platform? What kind of users does your platform exist for? And in many cases, it's quite broad, right? Like a product like an e-commerce platform, Snapdeal, for example, uses our games. The user base is going to be pretty large. They don't have a fixed demographic. So whatever they're able to send to us in terms of their demographic existence, the demographics of their users.
Sure.
We, from our end, then run some queries on our database, and we are able to pull games that we think are going to work well for them. And the thing is,
right,
because we exist inside 3,000 platforms, naturally we are able to get a lot of combined data from across these platforms. So we know which game is going to work well for a 20-year-old in Argentina, because we have 20-year-olds in Argentina playing our games.
Right.
Through across the network of our partners, about 40 million users play our games each month. And that's a lot of users that you're able to fetch information from.
Very interesting that for the example that you reached for was a gaming developer in Ukraine. And this is a question that I've asked a few other people from gaming that have been on this show. What's the story with Indian developers? Why are we not publishing or developing games? And here's my take on it, right? I think we have such a vast treasure trove of shared experiences and shared stories, right? Sure, Ludo is a massive success story from last year, right? And they've done well, but Ludo jaise bahut hai yaar. You have those games or those experiences that are so innately Indian. Whether it is playing with your family, whether it is a certain type of game, whether it is a certain story, backstory that lends itself to various games and stuff like that. But we're still, I wouldn't say struggling, because that's a very negative word, but we're still not where we should be. Would you agree?
Well, partly yes. And having said that, I would say that just like you took the example of Ludo, I think Ludo is a great example of a casual game. But again, Indian games that have also done well, which somehow don't get talked about a lot, are games like Carrom. Carrom does very well. Rummy does very well.
Sure.
Rummy is one of the biggest success stories of Indian gaming, right? And I don't even think that with the Ukraine example, I'll get into the details of that. I think what's happened is now game development could be very specific to you making games for, let's say, PC.
Right.
You making games for Android or iOS.
Right.
Or you developing games for HTML5 or on HTML5, which is where, we come in. I would say that Indian game developers have identified the most with game development for Android first and then maybe iOS.
Right.
Because that's where they see maximum action happening. HTML5, on the other hand, is the technology that allows you to run games on your mobile browser, on your desktop browser, on your smart TV. Basically, if the device is the browser, an HTML5 game is going to run there, right? The adoption of HTML5 tech, Vineet, has been more rampant, I would say, in Europe compared to anywhere else in the world.
Right.
So it's not even like we are able to get a lot of HTML5 games from China or from Japan. We get HTML5 games from Europe, and within Europe there are several pockets of HTML5 game development. So the ecosystem for HTML5 has flourished there, but India is exhibiting healthy signs.
Right.
We've gotten some great studios. There is a studio called Hammerplay in Chennai. They make fabulous HTML5 games, the best HTML, or I'm sure they'd be able to make games for any environment.
Sure.
They do a really good job. So
can you give us a couple of examples of the games that they've done?
Yeah, so we have recently gotten a game from them called Boulder Blast. It's a GamesOp exclusive. That game is one of my favorite games, and I've screened over 6,000, 7,000 games for our platform, right? So they've done a really good job, really smooth, right? One of the other points that you mentioned is now, you're talking about Miniclip and how they lived in the era of Flash games and games that were simple. We realized that if we have to make this platform successful, the gap between games that exist on Android, iOS, and games that are delivered on HTML5 needs to be bridged.
Right.
There can't be a big gap, because then users are used to high quality experiences, right? Everybody's played a Candy Crush.
Right.
They would want a Candy Crush level experience within an HTML5 game. So that's what we've seen happening of late. That's what we've seen with the influx of so many game engines on HTML5, with monetization improving on HTML5 games. These are telltale signs that HTML5 gaming is improving overall. And there is no reason why Indian game developers can't do it. It's just an adoption issue.
Sure.
Indian game developers have somehow felt that, the Play Store is the biggest avenue for distributing games. So let's make games for the Play Store.
Right.
But I think with so many other platforms like GamesOp, on Facebook Messenger, for example, you can play HTML5 games. On WeChat, on Line, you can play HTML5 games. So I think it's only a matter of time. But I don't think there's a talent gap. I think it's an adoption issue.
No, that certainly helps clear things up, at least in my head, because for me, I've got different answers from different people about this, right? I don't think it's a talent gap either, for sure, right? It's different environments and different narratives and different experiences. They work differently at different companies, right? But what stands out to me is how and I'm not just talking about HTML5 specifically or the games on GamesOp, but we're lacking that marquee Indian publishing house, right? For example, sure, Ubisoft has a lot of work that happens out of India. I know, right? But to me, it feels like we're missing that big Indian player who, takes up the mantle to take Indian stories in games. Right? I was reading the other day, I was scrolling through Instagram, and one of the gaming accounts that I follow posted 10 games around the world that have India references. And there were like 10 games with India references, right? But none of them was Indian, right? And I'm coming at it from that perspective, but I hear you, man. I mean, specifically to the environment that you're serving in, I understand that HTML5 adoption is something that will catch up, I'm sure, especially after Flash dies out, its slow, inevitable death. Let me ask you something slightly different, right? I mean, I want to understand the monetization model a little bit better, right? And again, I've spent some time working in licensing when it comes to video. And again, buying web series and stuff like that, right? For my time at TVF. How does that work for gaming, right? I mean, what's the pitch to game development studio, and then what's the pitch to the platform or the environment, right? And how do you guys get paid?
Sure. So I'll start with how the game developer makes money. And I think in gaming, there are two models which are pretty prevalent. One is, you go to a game developer and you tell the developer that, look, I like a certain game of yours. Have you already licensed it to somebody? Which means that you can't exclusively license that game. So you non-exclusively license that game. So right on the top, you could either exclusively or non-exclusively license content, right? That's the standard formula everywhere. Now, let's assume you've decided to go ahead with one of these models. There are two subsets which exist between both. You could either work on a revenue sharing model with the developer, which means whatever money that game makes on your platform, on GamesOp's platform, we will give the developer a statement of our earnings and we'll split revenue with the developer. Or you could tell the developer, look, we'll make an upfront payment to you, a one-time licensing fee as an insurance for your effort. So that even if for whatever reason, whether it's our platform's fault or whether your game's fault, if it doesn't for whatever reason grow as much as we expect it to grow, then you wouldn't have to worry about recurring payments. So it's either an upfront licensing,
like an MG sort of,
an upfront licensing fee, basically. So that would basically mean that whatever money we make from that game actually then belongs to us. We don't have to further share it. So that's on the game developer side of things. Now, what do we do for monetization? I think when we were chatting, you rightly remarked that subscription is something that should indeed grow in gaming, right? So I think with Netflix announcing that they'll have their own gaming service, etc.,
Right.
around their own IP for sure. But I think that's a big step forward. Otherwise, in gaming, the models that have existed are very standard. In-app game good purchases or in-app purchases. Let's assume you're unable to cross a level because you really need a sword. You could buy that sword and then you cross that level, or
Right.
you buy gems, etc., etc. Change the shield or something like that. If it's a game of that ilk, that's useful. Otherwise, you serve ads, right? So these have been the legacy models. GameStop does advertising. We also do subscriptions for our gaming, which means that we create packets of our games. And let's say some telecom provider in the Middle East may like to push game subscriptions to their users. They could do it entirely out of our games, which means that telco will then keep a share of the revenue and we'll get to keep a share of the revenue. So our subscription model has been more successful, incidentally, outside India than within India. Because we are trying to keep this conversation India-centric. In India, we have two very clear paths to monetization. One is serving advertisements, right? But serving advertisements is not a standard input-output. There's a lot that the ad tech industry has gone through, right? There are different formats of ads. There's something called rewarded videos, which have very, very high engagement, very high completion rates. Because if you don't complete it, you don't get the reward that the game sort of has.
The 3 diamonds you need.
Exactly, the 3 diamonds that you need, right? So rewarded ad format has done well for us. We also, on the ad tech side of things, we also don't rely on just working with one ad network. For example, there are several ad networks. Like Google has one called AdSense. Facebook has one called Facebook Audience Network. The key to doing successful monetization, Vineet, is if you have inventory. Let's assume you have 2 million ad slots, across your games, across your platforms. Every inventory that's out there must undergo bidding from Google, Facebook, your own ad sales team's efforts. And there are several other ad networks,
Right.
So if it undergoes the right kind of bidding and you create enough bid pressure on your inventory, you're going to get higher returns than just having one ad network.
Of course.
So I think smarter publishers or smarter developers have figured that out, So that's on the ad monetization side of things. The other thing which is unique to India and some other markets, but where India has seen a lot of action, is real money gaming.
Right.
Let's assume you and I put in 10 rupees each to play a game of carom. And if you win that game, then you'll get 18 rupees.
Right.
So GameStop also has a product called Skill Clash, where we do real money gaming, which doesn't have subscriptions, which does not have advertising at all. But since you and I have put in 10 rupees each and you as the winner get 18 rupees, the platform can keep 2 rupees as commission, or what's called rake.
Sort of a rake. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to say.
So these are the monetization models that are out there in gaming.
It's amazing, man. I mean, and I loved how you took us through the 3 individually. I've got a bunch of questions, but I'm going to go into a quick break because my producers already just sent me a message saying 22 minutes up. Back after a few short messages on this fascinating conversation with Gaurav Agarwal from GameStop. This is Storytellers and Storysellers. I have been fascinated with the field of AI for quite some time now. As an advertiser, you use the power of AI in many amazing and unique ways. So it's always a major plus to know how AI works and the things it can accomplish. Luckily, Intel's Digital Readiness Program is here to empower everyone with skill sets, mindsets, and tool sets to use in an AI-fueled world. So you can be ready to develop AI for even sports if you want to. As part of Intel's AI for Youth program, Intel has been working with the CBSE, the Ministry of Education, and the Government of India to empower today's youth to build social impact solutions while demystifying what AI is. How do you take advantage of this? Purchase an Intel Core-powered PC and you get free access to 80 plus hours of immersive and hands-on training about AI. On completion of the program, along with a certificate, you get access to AI toolsets to try and put what you learned to good use. So don't wait. Log on to futurebanaowonderful.intel.com. Future Banao Wonderful by bringing home an Intel-powered PC. And we're back. We're talking to Gaurav from GameStop. We're discussing all things gaming and business. Before the break, we talked about GameStop, Indian gaming ecosystem, monetization. After the break, I want to talk to Gaurav about Gaurav and Yashash. I think that's your brother's name.
Yes.
And how you guys put this company together. First of all, 2015, 2016, when you started this, were you an avid gamer before that, or it was just the opportunity? I mean, did your gaming mind kick in or did your business mind kick in, is what I want to start.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. So in 2016, I remember I was working at Bain and Company. So I actually come from a management consulting background, have very little to do with gaming as an industry. But incidentally, in 2016 at Bain, we were studying how Flash as a technology is going down for some of our clients, right? And my brother was in college. So GamesOp is his company. He's the CEO.
Right.
He started the company.
Right.
And I just joined him later. So it just so happened that our paths converged. He was actually making games back then. Right now, we don't make games, but he was making games for brands like KFC and Quaker, etc., and making some little money on the sideline while he was, getting through college. So I thought, this guy's up to something, and we might as well put our minds together and see, can we make this big? So if Flash is dying, naturally online gaming can't die, right? So what is the next technology that's coming up? And it happened to be HTML5.
Right.
So that's when one thing led to the other. We have obviously gone through several iterations of our own product. But ultimately, we realized that the best way for us to do business is to try and really leverage somebody else's distribution and take games out there. So that thinking took a little bit of time in coming, but that's what 2016 marked for us.
I love it, man. I mean, although I am a content guy, I mean, in marketing rooms, I'm the content guy. In content rooms, I'm the marketing guy. But one thing that if I've learned is that bloody distribution comes first.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you wholeheartedly agree or you agree 80% and 20% is like something else. But once you crack a distribution model, you can shove anything that has even, an iota of demand through that pipeline, right? And that, I think, is something that creatives tend to not understand often, right? I think business guys tend to get it. What happened then, right? You said you tried a few models, you tried making games, you realized, hey, there are, different players in this ecosystem doing different things. You can be the glue that brings it all together. Am I right in sort of assessing it like that?
Yeah, I think you are. And I would completely agree that distribution is of significant importance, right? I mean, why in gaming? Think of the FMCG space. Now, ITC has such a large distribution. HU has such a large distribution that tomorrow, if, they didn't start with all the product lines that they have today back in the day, right? But it was the distribution that allowed half the battle was won, because they knew that so many different shopkeepers, so many different shopping centers are going to have their products on the shelf. It's about shelf space, right?
Right.
So can we get the shelf space right? That was one of the things. And I think you're right in saying that we did want to try and bring a few pieces together. What were these pieces? We realized that a lot of game development companies really existed as game developers. There weren't too many people who are trying to platformize the experience. So we thought, can we handpick? And we aren't extremely proud about it, but GamesOp is not an open platform.
Right.
Not any game developer sitting anywhere can put their game in and have the might of our distribution at their disposal. It doesn't work like that. They have to submit games. It has to go through a review, curation. Sometimes we ask the developer to make edits to the game, and only then do we take it. So we thought, on one side, let us first solve the distribution problem. Today, if you put a game on the Play Store, let's assume King puts a game on the Play Store, no matter how successful their previous titles have been, on the evening of the launch of the new title, the distribution starts at zero.
Right.
On GamesOp, on the other hand, if we put a game today, we could guarantee that tomorrow it will have 1 million gameplays, because we'll put featuring behind it. And that platform of ours, GamesOp, the platform exists inside so many different players and we know that tomorrow there's predictability to it. So we thought, what if we take away the friction of installs, and what if we put user experience at the heart of things?
Right.
Today, game development companies, or back in the day also, they felt that the users to game खेलने आएंगे, हमें उसे Play Store के through distribute कर देना है, but वो notion die down हो जाएगा. उसको entertainment पे convenience भी चाहिए. Can we put convenience in the heart of all the things, and can we deliver experiences in a smooth manner? That's what marked a large part of our journey.
Love it, man. Talk me through. You've done 2 rounds so far, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's right.
Right. You had like an early seed round about 300K or so, and then a bigger round with Bitcraft last year, right?
Yes.
Talk us through. I mean, actually, give us a compare and contrast of those 2 rounds, right? Talk us through, what were you aiming for? What were the toughest questions? And what were the challenges that you still have to this day, for example?
Sure. So 2016, you're right, is when we raised a 400K round. That was immediately after our GSF acceleration. So there's an accelerator, GSF, and they select few companies, mentor them, groom them, make them ready to do business in many things, because in the early days things are still coming together. After the acceleration program, they have some road shows, which means that they take you to all around the country, and they'd make you meet investors through their network, etc. So that's how our first round came together in 2016. I think the questions that we were getting back then were more around. So my brother at that point in time was 19, I was 24, and he was still in college.
Right.
So a lot of the questions were really around, okay, your CEO is still in college. How does it happen? Is this a part-time gig of sorts? But I think a few of the guys were, saw the conviction in us, and they felt that, okay, nahin, these guys are serious about it. So that's where it was also a smaller round, right? So at that point in time, we didn't really have much of a product. So really, the investors were betting on the team. That team itni achhi hai ki they'll figure something out. Between the two rounds of funding, one part that I'd like to talk about is we wanted to do this business as a business. So from the very first year of our operations, we turned profitable.
Right.
We did not burn investor cash. We knew that, a business is one that can use its profits to really fuel expansion. आपको product बनाना है, आपको team hire करनी है. You have to get laptops for your designers, which cost 2 lakh rupees. The profits of the business should be able to fuel that.
Right.
Investors' capital should be kept for reserved for bad times. Or
underline that 100 times.
Yeah.
100 times we'll underline that and put it on every investors building. But yeah, please go on.
Yeah, so and we just felt that unless we have something very specific to achieve, let's assume we had to set up an office outside India. In Sweden, we set up a small office. We have some folks who work from there. Using capital specifically for that makes sense, because to expect you to plow profits back into that could sometimes be tough. But you need to have investor capital or things like those. But we thought that the business should run by its own merit. So that's why our rounds were spread apart by 4 years. 2016 was our seed round. 2020 was our Series A round. And Bitkraft led that round. They are gaming first investors. They're the world's largest gaming fund. We happened to be their first investment. So we're extremely proud. They were on top of our list when we thought we'd raise a Series A. The questions that we got at that point in time were very different, of course. Nobody was really putting a question mark on whether or not you're serious enough to do it. But the questions were more around, okay, now you've proven the model in one part of the world. What will it take you to replicate the success, or make a repeatable model of sorts, let's say in Indonesia or in Mexico, in Brazil or in the US? What's the timeline that you want to put on paper? How far do you think you're going to get there? How much more cash will you need to get there, assuming that you burn your Series A capital in 2 years' time and things like that? But overall, I think what we really liked about Bitkraft was, just like us, the founding partners of Bitkraft were entrepreneurs first. They had sold their own companies. So I think the meeting with them went pretty smoothly.
Wonderful, man. I want to ask you this as much for my learning as for my listeners. And here's how I understand it, right? Like a Series A sort of happens when you have a proven model and a product market fit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Your Series B is when your product market fit is ready for global expansion or territory expansion. Would that be the right way to put it?
Yes, that would be.
So while it's all great from an investor perspective, externally coming in, right? Hey, look, you're making lots of money. Now let's go make money in other markets, right? What is the internal drive at GamesOp, right? To continue this growth, right? What are you guys looking at doing? I mean, I'm sure your investors want you to make a lot of money. Right? Everybody wants to make a lot of money. But what are you guys in it for? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a question that we ask ourselves every day, right? And each time we look ourselves in the mirror, I think the biggest motivation that we have, Vineet, is to build an online distribution company like none other.
Right.
And GamesOp started with games, but when you have distribution, again, the ITC example, by no means do we have to stop at games. Our goal is to have one dedicated section for our icon inside as many apps and websites in the world as possible.
Right.
That's our drive, because when we look at our model, we know that, and we've been extremely lucky. We got the right set of mentors at the right stages of our lives who could point us in the right direction, and together the models come together. When we take our product to an app or a website, we don't charge them money. We don't tell them that आपको हमारे games use करने तो आप हमें पैसे दीजिए.
Right.
हम उनको बोलते हैं, you create a gaming section for us. We will drive the monetization there using the monetization tech that I just spoke to you about, and we will pay you 50% of what we earn. So any app or website sitting anywhere in the world could, in 30 minutes time, add games up, right? Start to see increased engagement on their product because people have affinity towards playing games, and get a new stream of monetization.
Right.
Who have we hurt in this process? They say that when businesses become really large, they drive somebody out of the equation. We aren't driving anybody out of the equation.
Right. Of course.
Our objective is take games to the users, make additional money for the publishers, and in the process, make a really large online distribution company. That's what keeps us very driven.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the fact that you said that we're not harming anyone in the process, right? It takes me back to the time when we were launching this OTT platform at TVF called TVF Play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that time my boss, who was the COO, and I and a couple of other guys, we were sitting down and wondering, what do we do? Right? And this is like early days of content supply. I mean, 2016 में सर 3 वेब सीरीज आई थी, ठीक है? 2015 में 3 आई थी, 2016 में 12 आई थी. We were wondering, क्या करें यार? कंटेंट बनने में टाइम लगता है, 12-15 महीने का. It's a gestation period. What do we do? And one of the things that we were thinking was, we should have a gaming section on our app. Right? And at that time we were like, oh, what should we do? Should we go like Unity or something else? And I'm like, boss, आप मुझे तब मिलते ना, तो हम शायद TVF Play को बचा सकते. But anyway, jokes apart, I love the way you said, right? We want to be present in as many platforms as possible. We're here to bring value to them. We're not driving anybody out of business. We're not cannibalizing anybody else's revenue. It's a win-win in one of those rare scenarios where win-wins are for everyone, and that's what GameStop sounds like. Let me ask you this before we go into the Water with Vineet section. What next, right? 2020 Series A, big expansion. What next, immediately speaking, right? In the near-term horizon, What are you guys excited about? What are you guys building that everyone should be looking out for?
Sure. So the good part is after our Series A, so we raised our Series A primarily because at that point in time, it's easy to look back and say, pandemic hai to gaming to grow karega hi. Nobody really could say for sure, right? The extent of the pandemic, etc. These were at best guessworks happening by analysts all around the world. Right. So we raised our Series A round because we wanted to have enough to sustain the company should everything go down, and luckily we were able to do that. The good part is that right now, we don't have a crisis of runway. Since the company is profitable, we are able to focus solely on growth, In the next 2-3 years, right now we are present inside about 3,500 odd products. By the end of this year, we'll be live inside roughly 5,000 odd products. And, we have very, very ambitious goals. We want to, of the 3,500 odd products that I just spoke to you about, Vineet, mostly about 90% of these are Indian products.
Right.
But we see that already 50% of our revenues are coming from global markets because this product is also very successful in global markets. Agar aap Times of India pe live ho, to Times of India ke users India ke bahar se bhi aa rahe hain. So we see that this product works just as well for them.
Right.
Our goal is to now try and see how we can go to select markets that we have identified. Southeast Asia is one very important destination for us. Latin America is very important for us. Our goal is to grow in these markets organically and inorganically. There are some companies in these markets that are of interest to us. We see that in some form or fashion, they have tried to build distribution companies. We'd like to exploit synergies with them. Can they become a part of the larger GameStop family and help us fuel our distribution there? So that's what keeps us really excited. It's like you said, right? There are so many stories that are being told all around the world in the form of games that have Indian references.
Right.
Can we be one of those that's turned the tables around? And can an Indian company have a solid distribution foundation? Can it have engaged gamers in apps and websites in different parts of the world? I think that's what we're really excited about, and hopefully we'll get there.
Wonderful. We're on to our Water with Vineet section. I have 2 non-gaming questions for you and 1 gaming question for you. I'll start with the gaming question. The greatest example of turning from distribution to product is Netflix.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
You're in in that kind of a space. I'm going to say it because, hey, that's how I feel about it. You've got 40 million people tuning in, playing your games. Would you consider building games now?
It's something that's crossed our mind, but we have stayed away from it largely because first, it requires a very different talent pool. Like you said, with just like creating a web series is a 12 to 15 month gestation period, creating a game will also be a 3 to 4 month long period, right?
Right.
And we just feel that there is so much content and high quality content that's being created the world over. For us to join the bandwagon at this point in time won't make sense.
Sure.
So we are happy being a distribution company that could exercise a neutral opinion on all the games that comes our way.
Right.
And then eventually try and, make them reach the audiences.
Sure. Interesting. My next question, like I said, I promise you a non-gaming question, is what do you do for fun, man?
Oh, God. Well, I think playing games is a lot of fun. You should try it sometime. Go to gamesoft.com. But that aside, I like to spend time reading. It's something that's given me a lot of sanity over a period of time, and I think the more it's a healthy addiction that I carry with me.
Tell us about some of the books you really like, and don't do the tech startup bro thing and tell me non-fiction books, and don't say hard thing about hard thing. That's not allowed on this podcast. I'm just saying.
So I like fiction.
I love it.
And in fact, one of the books that I read recently is called Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. It's of course been it's a prize-winning book and so on and so forth. It's just that I really liked it. It's a collection of short stories, very, very moving.
Right.
The subtitle of the book says From Boston to Bengal and Beyond. Right. So I liked the alliteration that was. In fact, I picked the book up because of the alliteration. So I really loved it. And hopefully Jhumpa keeps writing more of these books.
Love it. Last question. Again, like I said, non-gaming. Tell us about how you and your brother work together, man. I mean, what are qualities that he brings to the table? What are qualities that you bring to the table?
Sure.
How's that working relationship been, building this wonderful company that you have?
Yeah. I think working with my brother has been the most rewarding part of building GameSop. I mean, we've known each other a really long time, right? By default.
I'm sure. You slightly longer than him, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I think it's been really, really good. We have a great working relationship. We are 5 years apart. So that also means that when
does he call you Bhaiya?
Yeah, he does.
He does?
Yeah.
It's wonderful, man.
Yeah, and we grew up in a joint family, right? So I think it was fun growing up that way. But more than figuring out what we do and how we split our roles, it's about how we've really stayed close to each other throughout all of this, and that's really been anchored on the simple belief that his objective and my objective are the same.
Right.
Sometimes the methods could be different, but both of us in our heart of hearts really want this company to grow, right? So I think that's what's kept us together. That's what has allowed GameSop to grow a bit. We've started to see some early signs of success, but still there's so much that we have to do together. In terms of splitting the role, he looks at everything product. I look at the distribution side of things. So which is why I harped a little bit too much on the distribution side of the story. But I think Yashash takes care of the product.
Wonderful. One last question that popped into my head.
Yeah.
And I want you to give me your top 3 Marwadi founders in India.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I am. Can't you see the smile on my face?
Okay, so let's start with Marwadi founders, right? I think the top Marwadi founders would be Ghanshyam Das Birla, Marwadi founder.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I would say that the other Marwadi founders that I like would be. See, it's tough to leave Sachin and Binny out of the equation. So you'll have to have them in. And my third favorite Marwadi founder is going to be Rohit Bansal, Snapdeal, because I've met him a few times and I just could see through times. Snapdeal's been through a lot, and I could just see that guy's been so clear in his thinking all throughout. No matter what the press is saying, etc., he's just going to stay put to his mission of making this marketplace model work. So that would be my top 3.
Now, what a wonderful comeback story they're scripting, right? It's not completely done. I don't think it's fully done, but they're doing a good job of coming back, right? I think from the days of having your app uninstalled because of Amir Khan to now slowly but surely coming back. Thank you for that, man. That was actually a very, very astute list. That's it. That's the set of questions I had. I had a lot of fun. I learned a fair bit as well about what it is that you're doing, and it sounds like a riot, man. Sounds like you guys are, while you're looking at it from a business lens and seemingly very thorough with what you're doing, I think what you're setting out to do, or what your vision seems to be, is very clear, right? And I love that. And I love the fact that, hey, man, we're here to just add value to other platforms. We are here to add value to other consumers. We're not here to, shove someone out of the way and take over their value, right? We're creating value on our own. I had a lot of fun, man. Thanks so much for being on the show. I hope you had fun.
Likewise, I had a lot of fun. And I'm sorry that we couldn't, be in touch earlier with the TVF play. Maybe next time.
Oh, for sure. The next OTT app I'm launching, I will be like, games up se pehle baat karo. First, let's get that done. But I'm not even joking, man. I'm 100% serious that we gave it like serious thought at that time. But the market was different, life was different. But yeah, I hope you step in and extend the life of all the other TVFs and all the other great other apps that are out there. That's it on this episode of Storytellers and Storysellers. Thank you so much, Gaurav Agarwal, for being with us. This is me, Vineet Kanabar, saying goodbye.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus is joined by writer-director Faraz Arif Ansari to talk about their critically acclaimed short films, Sisak, Siberia, and the recent hit Sheer Korma. On The Habit Coach, Ashton introduces us to Avinash BR, co-founder of Deep Rooted Company, and his take on the quality of the food and supply chain in India and current trends in the farming sector. On Naan Curry, Sadaf and Archit talk about the humble potato, right from its origin and trade history to the various ways it can be used in dishes and its health benefits. On All Things Policy, Aditya Ramanathan joins Aditya Parekh to discuss the UK's first ever national space strategy document and the lessons it may hold for India. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna slices through the drama of bad boss behavior and shares what it takes to be a good boss. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our others for that matter, please do tell a friend. We really appreciate you spreading this. Word of mouth helps a lot. And finally, this week, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, and Intel. We really appreciate the support.
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa Vaisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM Podcast app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.